Hello everyone. In this video, I'm going to go through the worksheet on transmission of heat, the true and false worksheet. And before I go through this worksheet, I think it's important for us to just spend a couple of minutes revising some of the key concepts so that later on, as we go through the answers, you will understand why the statements are true or false. So first of all, let's remember that for conduction, if the conduction happens very fast in an object, then we call the object a good conductor. And usually a good conductor will be a metal. But if the process of conduction happens very slowly, then that material in which conduction happens so slowly, we call it an insulator. An insulator will be liquid or gas. And for solid, they can also be insulators like wood, plastic, or anything that traps air, for example, wool, feather, styrofoam, right? So the key thing I want you to remember is that whether it is a conductor or insulator, the key thing is, the key thing is we look at the material, okay? The material will decide whether it is a conductor or an insulator. So metal is a material, right? Wool, plastic, gas, liquid, these are all different materials. So the material will decide whether it is a good or poor conductor. Over here, you will not see anything to do with colors. You will not see anything to do with texture because those will not affect how fast conduction takes place. So let's take a look at radiation. Now, for radiation, basically we are looking at the surface, because it is the surface that will absorb radiation or emit radiation. So basically, we are only concerned with the type of surface. So if that kind of surface is very good at absorbing or whether it is taking in or giving out radiation, if it's very fast, then we call it a good absorber or a good emitter. If the surface does not take in or take in very little, maybe I'll just, so that where there's very little radiation, take in very little radiation, then I will call it a poor absorber or poor emitter. So how do I know whether it is acting as an absorber or emitter? Well, if the object is hotter than the surrounding, okay, if the object is hotter than the surrounding, then this object will absorb heat. Then it will either, if it's dark, rough, and have a large surface area, then we say it's a good absorber. But if the object is hotter than the surrounding and the color is like white, the surface is shiny, smooth, and the surface area is small, these are all the attributes of a poor absorber. All right, then we say they are poor absorber. Now, an object, regardless of the colors and the texture, they will be an emitter if they are colder than the surrounding. Okay, so if they are colder than the surrounding, then they will be a poor emitter. Sorry, if they are colder than the surrounding, they will be emitter. And if this is the attributes, they will be a good emitter. If these are the attributes, they will be a poor emitter. So you must take note of this before we do the worksheet. So always remember, for conduction, we look at the material. The material will determine whether it is a good or poor conductor. For radiation, we look at surface. Okay, the surface will determine whether it is a good or a poor absorber. So let's get started. Let's take a look at our worksheet here. So the first question, black surfaces. So again, the question talk about surface, and then we know that surface will only affect radiation, but they use the word good insulator. I wouldn't know. All right, I only know something is a good insulator if I know what material it is. By telling me the surface, it is not enough. So this is a false statement. Conduction can travel in vacuum. Again, it is a false statement because conduction requires particles to vibrate and pass their vibration to the next particle, right? So remember, we need them to vibrate and to collide with the neighboring particles. So vacuum, there are no particles. Question 3. Hot object, again it is false. It is infrared radiation. Question 4. Hot air rises because it is less dense. That is true. Anything that is less dense than the surrounding, it will rise. Whether it is hot air or whether it is hot liquid, it is the same thing, they will rise. Radiation can travel through solid, liquid, gas and vacuum. True. Radiation can travel through all states of matter, but in solid and liquid, they are very insignificant. It can travel, but not much. So in gas and vacuum, that is where a lot of radiation can be transmitted. But it's still true that they can travel. Question 6, the answer is false. And again, that's because between the Earth, so this is the Earth, and the Sun, there is actually a layer of vacuum. So because of the vacuum, because of the vacuum, conduction and convection cannot take place. Question 7, conduction is fastest in air. No, false. Conduction is fastest in solid, because solid particles are very closely packed. So it's easy for them to collide and transfer energy. And for gases that are so far apart, it is difficult. Okay, the slowest is in gas. Question 8. Rough surface emits heat faster. True. If you look at a rough surface under the microscope, let's say something like that, then you notice that a rough surface has an increased surface area. So a rough surface, there is a larger surface area compared to a smooth surface. So when you have a larger surface area, you are able to emit more heat. Question 9. Liquid is a poor conductor. Yeah, true. Solids are better, and among solid, metal is better than non-metal. All hot bodies give out infrared. True. Right? As long as they are hot, they will be emitting. So if you have a hot object, the infrared will come out in all directions. Whether this object is in liquid, in gas, or even in the vacuum, the heat waves will come out. So that's infrared. Okay, number 11. White surface is fast in emitting and absorbing. So this is false. Remember, just now when we were looking at it, we said that if they are good in emitting and absorbing, they must be dark colored, dull, and with a large surface area. Question 12. If something emits heat fast, it will also absorb heat fast. That is true. A good absorber and a good emitter, they share the same property. So you see, if they are black, dull, and have a large surface area, they will be a good absorber and a good emitter. But just remember, each time they will either be an absorber or they will be acting as an emitter. They can't do both at the same time, because if they are hotter than the surrounding, they cannot be colder than the surrounding. So they are either a good absorber based on where you put it, or it will be a good emitter. But they can't be both at the same time. Question 13. A big surface area will absorb. Yes, true. You have a large surface area for absorption and emission. 15. Fluids sink because they have a lower density, and that is false. Because a large density causes it to sink. Okay, a smaller density causes it to rise. Question 15. Metal absorbs heat better than non-metal is false. Remember, when you look at metal and non-metal, these are materials. I cannot tell from a material whether they are as good absorbers or not, unless you tell me what is the color of that material. I cannot assume that all metals are shiny, right? I may be able to paint a metal. So if you tell me absorb heat, that means you are telling me it is an absorber. Then you need to tell me what is the surface before I decide whether it's a good or poor absorber. Okay, by telling me the material, I can't decide. Question 16. Air is a poor conductor of heat. Yes, true. Solid is the best, followed by liquid, followed by gas. So these are poor conductors. Solids are the better conductor. I won't say all solids are good, but they are better than liquid and gas. Radiation occurs when heated particles vibrate more vigorously. Note that is false. What you see here, this whole thing, it is not talking about radiation. It is talking about conduction. Okay? Right. Question 18. Silvered surface is a poor absorber of heat. That is true. Silver, now I know, right, whether it's an absorber or not. I need to look at the surface. If it's silver in color, it's a light color. So light color, they are poor absorber. Question 19. To prevent oil storage tank from being heated up, so it should be painted white. That is true, because you don't want the tank to be heated up, right? So when the radiation comes in, you want it to absorb slowly. So you want it to be a poor absorber. So what kind of colors should you choose? Probably white, silvery, so it doesn't absorb so much. Actually, if it's silvery in color or white, it also means that when the heat comes, it gets bounced back. And that's the reason why it doesn't absorb so much. Next question. To prevent a house from being too hot, it should be made of metal. False. If you don't want the house to be too hot, then you want to make sure that the heat doesn't come in. So the material you choose. So outside is very, very hot, right? In the tropics. So the heat will want to go into the house. So you've got to choose a material that will make this entry of heat slow it down, right? So then you should choose an insulator. So if it's a metal, the heat can pass through very fast. So the heat from outside can come in so fast, you are going to be burning inside the house, right? It will be very hot. Question 21. Wool is a poor absorber of heat. Again, it is false. Because what did we say? Wool is a material. And a material doesn't tell us whether they are good or poor absorber. A material only tells us whether it's a good or poor conductor. So I can't tell. Okay. Question 22. Aircon should be placed at the bottom. False. Aircon should always be placed at the top of the house so that when the cold air comes out, it will sink downwards and then the whole house will become cold. If you have it at the bottom, then all the cold air will stay at the bottom. Then the top part of the house will be very warm. Metals are better conductor than non-metals because they are free electrons. True. These additional helpers, free electrons, they move around. They move around the particles, and then they will help to transfer. So like this one. So you see, these are all the free electrons. Initially, the particles will vibrate, pass energy to this one will pass to this one, and so on. But free electrons enable, once you vibrate, they may pass energy to free electrons, and they can then quickly move because they are free. They are free moving. They can move. They can move to the next one, or they can just jump very fast to, let's say, somewhere here even. So you see, you can help to transfer the vibration. Question 24. A girl dropped a baking tray because it's too hot, and that's because the heat reached her by conduction. Yes. Each time something is touching another thing, as long as you touch something, you get the heat by conduction. Okay, the heat transfer is by conduction. So whether you are touching a hot tray, or the hot tray is touching the table, or the ice is touching the food, and so on. Basically, when two things touch each other, the process is conduction. Question 25. Ice absorbs heat from the surrounding. Answer, actually, well, this surrounding, I have to assume is room temperature, because if the surrounding is a freezer that is even colder than ice, then it may not be true. So anyway, so this is true. My assumption is the surrounding is at room temperature. If you put a piece of ice and let's say the ice is 0 degrees Celsius, if you put it in a very big freezer and it's -20, then it will not be absorbing, right? This is higher to low temperature. Then in that case, the heat will come out from the ice. Okay, so it's important to specify what kind of surrounding. So my assumption is it's room temperature. Styrofoam is a good insulator. That is true. Okay, very good. You have finished the assignment.